Good morning. All right. There's no smoke without a fire. Today we're going to record and talk about the second law of the 21 laws of leadership that we were talking about last week. That second law actually is the law of influence, but I put a twist on it to say there's no smoke without a fire because, when you smell smoke, there must be a fire somewhere. And the smoke influences how one smells. And since influence is something that has the capacity to change people or things, so I put that twist on it, no smoke without a fire. John talks about the law that the measure of one's leadership is the measure at which one can influence another person or a situation or change it, either for good or for bad. And he talks about if one is a leader and nobody's following, you're just taking a walk. Leadership is kind of funny because a lot of people think of leadership in position. In other words, if you ask most people, are you a leader? They're going to tell you, no, I'm not a leader. My boss is the leader. But being a boss is not necessarily criteria for being a leader. In other words, you can be a boss and not a leader, but you also can be a leader and not be a boss. You may not have the title, you may not have the position, but if one influences people or things, then that person is a leader. There are like 5 myths that people think about when they think of leadership. And the 5 myths include management. Management is not leadership. Management is taking care of systems and processes, and that's not leadership, because leadership presumes people and presumes having good relationships, communicating and connecting with people. That's leadership, because processes and things can follow you. So if leadership is having followership, then processes and things are not leadership. The other myth is entrepreneurship. Just because you own a business or you own property or you own an enterprise is not the same as being a leader, because you can own those things but not be in a leadership role because you're not having people follow you. John talks about if people follow you because you sign their paycheck, that's not leadership. They're following the check, not you. The other myth is the knowledge. Just because we know something doesn't mean we're going to do it. And the fourth thing is pioneer, being a pioneer. Because I get there first doesn't make me a leader. It just means I get there first. When you think of computers, for example, think of IBM. IBM was there first in the computer industry, and they made the assumption that because they were there first, they were the leaders. But here comes a bunch of guys that decided to look at the computer industry in a new light. So now IBM doesn't seem to have the place they had initially, even though they got there first. They didn't influence the culture. Apple did, by making us take the computer into our phones and into our the player. What's that? The iTunes player. Yeah, I have a bronchitis. iPod, yes. Because before Apple challenged that industry of computers are mainly for your PC, your desktop, or your laptop. But Steve Jobs decided, no, the computer can be used even more succinctly in other things. And the iPod is the reason why we moved into the iPhone. And if you think of the iPhone as a smartphone, there were other people better than Apple. There were other smartphones, but they didn't have the way of making other people follow them. In other words, being a pioneer does not mean that you have influence. Now, the fifth one is the position myth. Most leadership, especially in this country, assumes that if you have a title, you're a leader. And most people fight, and our election shows that we have that myth. We think the only people that lead must have a title. Each of us has abdicated our part of leadership because we haven't realized that leadership is not in the title, it's in what we do. Most volunteer organizations have good leadership because if you think that most people are not paid to do the work, but they have a cohesive organization, they have goals that are met on time by people who don't get paid, but are galvanized by somebody who has that vision, shares a vision with them, and helps them move from where they are to where they want to get to. So the best forms of leadership you find are usually in volunteer organizations because those people have been led by someone who understands how to influence people positively, help them use their strengths, and minimize their weaknesses by pairing them up with somebody who helps them in their weaknesses so that the organization gets the best deal. And so you almost wonder if we should allow people to volunteer first before they get into leadership positions so they can understand the dynamics of leading people correctly before they lead people where the cost might be a lot. One of the things that I realized for me is many times I may have abdicated my leadership role because I don't have a title. You know, when people ask, "Can you do this?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm not the boss. I'm not in charge." Yeah, but the thing is, anyone that can influence a situation, a position, is a leader because you're helping people see what needs to be done and helping them move from where they are to where it needs to be done. There are 7 characteristics of influence. 7. And as I call them out, you can rate yourself in those characteristics. The first characteristic is character. And character is, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? The next characteristic is relationships. Who do you know? The next one is knowledge. What do you know? The next is intuition. What do you feel? The next is experience. Where have you been? The next is past successes. What have you done? And the last one is ability. What can you do? You know, a lot of times I don't filter my influencing of a situation through those prisms, but you look at it. If, for instance, let's think of our city. And when I think of character, who am I? Who are you? Who are we? Each as an individual and as a city, who are we? You know, are we just on the planet? Just who are we? Yeah. If we think of ourselves as a people who, well, do we love God? Do we love our nation? Do we love our city? Do we love our family? Do we love our job? Do we love our sport? Do we love our organization? Who are we? Then the relationship part. The relationship part is one that I wrestle with a lot because sometimes I don't remember that I have to feel great about me before I can feel great about you. The reason being, if I don't feel great about me, and it's a nice day outside, I don't see the day. The day is going to be great because I only see the world through how I feel. And so when I think of relationships now, I think of making sure that my relationship with myself before I leave the house is okay, so that I can see people better, because once I see people better, then I'm not seeing them through a preconceived idea of judging them or anything of that nature. And so I'm more, this year I've made up my mind to work on my relationships, you know, and that's important because people do not care to listen to what you have to say if you don't care about them. It's if you don't care about them, then they're not going to listen to what you have to say. And then knowledge, you know, we have to know stuff. I mean, in anything we are, if I go to the shop and have someone do my car, I want to know that they know what they're doing. And when people come to us for any reason at all, they need to know that we know what we're doing, that we have the knowledge. You know, we have the knowledge about what we want to change. Like the chamber has to have the knowledge about what they want as a goal for Greenbrier or for whatever part of the world it is. And intuition is, how do we feel? You know, how do we feel? How do we feel? We have to have emotions to be able to take our thoughts and make them real and reality. If we have goals and we have no feelings about the goals never happen. The most passionate people I've seen are politicians. They're very passionate. Right or wrong, they are. If they say they want to do something, they go all out. And that's the kind of passion that we're supposed to have, you know. Our feelings, our inner self. What do we feel? How does it drive us? Does it wake us up? Does it make us cry? Does it make us laugh? And that's why they have a lot of influence, because they carry people with them. And if we look at the most influential parts of our society, it's media, film, sports, because when we watch those people perform their craft, there's a lot of emotional attachment to it. You know, we're going high, lows, you know, they carry us with them, that we feel that we're actually participating, even though we're spectators. We feel like we're playing the game. No, we're not. We're sitting. But they've carried us with our feelings. Feelings are very powerful. Experience, you know. Experience. I used to think experience was a great teacher, but it's not. You think of it. Experience that's not evaluated is no good at all. Oftentimes, kids, when you watch them touch something, it burned them the first time, but sometimes they go back, you know, just, I guess maybe to check whether it's real or not. You would think that if you touch something and, you know, it burns, you're not going to go back because, you know, it burns. But past experiences is something that we need to evaluate. If they're good, then we need to duplicate them. If they're not good, then we need to delete them, you know. And then successes. The good thing about success is if one puts their success in front of them, it helps you or one realize that if I have done this before, I can do it again. It may not be the same field, because remember, anything we had a success at, when we started out, we had no clue. Matter of fact, most of the things we succeed at, we never anticipated that amount or the degree of success. And so if we can go backwards from the success to when we started, then we can see what the process is. And if we can learn how we move from unknown to known, then we can have a form and say, okay, if I get on a new project or new thing, this is how I start, this is where I want to go. I have to do this type of steps. and duplicate our successes. The ability, I know I can't be a ballerina. I may wish I don't have the ability to do that. But sometimes we judge ability wrong, because I think of Nick Vujicic. He has no arms and no legs, has a little stub. He plays soccer. He paraglides. He does all kinds of stuff. Even though he can't dress himself, he does incredible things that when you think of the ability to do it, he shouldn't have that ability. He totally shouldn't. He has no arms and legs. But he has defined himself by deciding certain things he wants to do, and he's found a way that he can do it in spite of his limitations. And for me, that's the most significant part of influence. Is I need to figure out, are there things that I don't think I can do because of my perceived limitations or real limitations? Can I move around them to get the best of it? And when I look at Nick Vujicic, he can't dress himself, but he can climb and get cookies on top of a shelf because he's figured out how to maneuver himself. But dressing himself is hard, but he can do other things. And so he's able to influence a lot of people because he's a speaker for teenagers and young adults, helping them realize that in spite of their limitations, real or perceived, they can still exceed expectations. And that's so powerful for me, to think that someone with that amount of limitations is able to help me and others who appear to have no limitations at all. And so he's a leader. Matter of fact, if you Google him and check on his YouTube and followership, and Google Facebook and all that, he has more followers than people that have 2 arms and 2 legs, because he has decided to go through those 7 characteristics of leadership and find the part that he knows he can change, and that has made him a great influence. He has answered 3 main questions that I think each of us need to answer. In order to influence anyone, people ask us this question: do you care for me? Is it all about you, or is it about me? Oftentimes, we base our actions to other people based on our perception of whether they care for us or they care for themselves. If people are perceived to care for themselves more than us, we really don't like them. We love people that make us feel good about ourselves when we're with them. And so that question is, do you care for me? People are asking that question every day. Every single day, everybody is asking somebody else that question. Do you care for me? Someone said the channel that we tune on to is the radio channel. This radio channel started with the W, is W. I can't remember how it says it, but the channel is, do you care for me? In other words, the channel we tune to is, do you care for me? We don't tune to the channel of, do you care for another person? Because once we know that people care for us, it's almost like the sun. The sun shines so bright that even if we have a huge jacket on, the sun can make us take the jacket off, because it just shines and does what it does, but it shines, we get warm, we take the jacket off. The wind, however, the harder it blows, the more we hold on And we're not letting that go for our life. We're going to hold on with all our energy because the wind appears to be challenging us and not caring about us, wants to take stuff from us. And so we're going to hold on tight to it. And there are people, the people that influence the most are the caring people, the ones that bring the light, the ones that bring the sun, the ones that bring the warmth. And when you think of sun, light, warmth, they're positive. Whereas wind does not give that positivity of caring. The second question is, can you help me? It's not enough for you to care about me. Can you help me? If you can't help me, I don't want to hear it. That's another question people ask. Before we can influence people, they want to know, what can you do for me? Because when we perceive that people can't do anything for us, they lose that influence with us. So when we want to influence our community, our family, we need to care about them and we need to be able to do something for them. The third question that people ask every time is, can I trust you? Those three questions, caring, doing, and trusting, is very important to influence people. I think trust is the most powerful gift that we can ask of anyone. And trust is so powerful, it's almost like we all have a bank account that is given to us, and it's a bank account that has huge deposit of trust. So we come to this world trusting, but our experiences cause us not to trust. And a lot of times we have influence because people trust us, and we forget that it's like having change in your console. You know how you just throw the change and you want to buy something, or you want to go to the vending machine, or you want to park your car and you reach for the change. It's okay to reach for the change, but if you keep reaching for the change and don't put deposits in it by caring and doing to build up your trust back, one day you reach for trust and it's not there. And we have to be careful, especially with those closest to us, with trust, because sometimes we take trust for granted and we keep taking and taking from the bank of trust. And when we need trust the most, it ain't there. It's empty. Once we lose trust, we lose influence. And I think what we're seeing in our world, especially in the United States today, is we don't feel that people care about us, that people are going to do anything for us. So in the bank of trust, it's zero. So when people ask us to follow them, we can't, and we won't. And so most of our leaders are walking alone because we ain't following them. They're not doing anything for us. They don't care about us. And so we don't trust them. And since leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, and since there's no smoke without a fire, if there's no fire, there ain't no smoke. Most of our leaders, they're full of smoke, they have no fire. My question to you is this today. Learning the law of influence. There are 7 characteristics. Which of those characteristics do you need to work on? Is it your character? Who you really are? Is it your relationships? Who you know? Is it your knowledge? Or is it intuition? Is it your experience? Or is it in your past successes or your ability? The bad thing about success is this. Success is static. What happened yesterday that was good is okay. But we can't live on past successes, because past successes do not exist. They're done. The only good part about successes is they can help us see where we can get to. I have to remember that, because oftentimes I live in the past. I guess because I'm older, think of all the stuff I've done. But when I look today, I'm like, what am I doing? If my heart or my lungs were supposed to live in the past, I'd be dead. John talks about this. He says, yesterday ended last night. So the successes we had yesterday should end last night. We should celebrate. But then we can't keep celebrating about successes that happened like 10 years back. January 1st, today is 31st of January. So if we look back at January, yeah, we've had some successes. We celebrate. We pick what's good to help us for February that's coming. But we can't sit there. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. No smoke without a fire. Keep your fire burning. Thank you.